Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Good.
how's it
Can
going?
you all hear me okay?
It looks like everyone's here. So I'm the moderator for this session, Jennifer Fergesen, and I have to let people in as they request. So I'm just going to wait a little bit to start to see if anyone else comes in. 2 minutes, and then we can start the session.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Am I able to test my screen sharing before the session starts?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the icon for the screen share, it's X'd out for me, so I'm wondering, is there something else I need to do?
Let me see if there's anything that I can do. Where is the screen sharing icon usually?
I'm assuming it looks like a monitor and it's next to the microphone icon. I'm assuming that would be it.
Okay, this says integrations used during recorded sessions will not appear in the recording.
It's not critical for me to share any screens, but if we can, that's great. If not, I can work around that also.
Well, when I click the button, there's options for share screen. So do you want to try hitting that and seeing if that works for you?
The button is X'd out for me, so I'm not sure why it doesn't allow me to click.
Well, it's X'd out for me, but I can click on it. If you click on it, does anything happen?
No, it shows the no entry sign, so it doesn't allow me to click.
Okay, let's see. Can anyone else use the share screen button?
No.
So what does it look like for you? Do you see a red X over it, or is it like shaded, lighter than the rest of the buttons?
Yeah.
There's a red line across it.
And if you click it, does anything show up? Interesting. Okay, well, it looks like only the moderator has the ability to share screens. If you want, you can send me your files and I can share them. Or we can talk to the technical advisor, I think. There's someone doing that.
It's very intimidating to be in this group of very, very, very talented people.
I feel the same way.
Well, I don't think I consider myself part of that.
Y'all are great. So everyone's talented here. Nice to meet you too, Eric. How's it going? I think I didn't see you on the last one.
Yeah, nice to meet you folks. Yeah, I'm doing well. Hope you all are doing the same.
Staying alive.
Are you all in Hawaii also?
I'm in New York, calling in from Brooklyn.
Oh, nice. How's the weather up there?
It's snowing a lot. So everyone who is in a place where it isn't snowing, y'all are lucky. but yeah, how about y'all? Where y'all calling in from?
I'm in San Francisco. I used to go to New York often because my daughter used to go to school there at Columbia University, but she graduated already. So.
Oh, very cool.
An excuse to go over there.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm pretty close by in Sacramento, but I'm originally from New Jersey.
Nice.
I'm on Oahu, Hawaii.
Yeah.
You're the sun with me, Queenie.
Yeah. Come again?
Where's Eric at?
Oh, I'm in Honolulu with Queenie.
Oh, nice. Yeah, my daughter was in the Marine Corps, and there's this great Camp Pendle. No, Camp. It's an awesome place. It's like a resort.
Aulani?
No. It's a resort for military folks.
Oh.
Oh, Halikoa? That's the military hotel in Waikiki.
Yeah.
It sounds like a guy. It's like a guy's name.
Colina.
But he's in. He used to be stationed at. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. Kaneohe.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Bellington, Camp Bellington.
Oh, Bellows.
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 Bellows. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so nice over there.
Yeah, they have cabins on the beach that are very popular to rent
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I know. And then one time I was like washing, and then I went the back door to hang my stuff, and then the wind blew both doors closed. They were all locked, and I had to walk back to the main place just to get the key to get back in.
Yeah, it does get pretty windy here sometimes.
Yeah, but the food over there was so nice. One time we just drove by and we saw the chicken. It's a it's just a van that was selling chicken, and we just like laid out our towels and just sat there. It's some kind of roasted chicken. That's so awesome.
That's great. Eric, did you get any message from Michi about sharing your screen?
Let me see. Okay, let me check. Yeah, she said it should be available. No, I'm sorry. That was regarding something else. No updates on sharing the screen, but if I can, I should be able to work around it. It's not.
Okay, sounds good. In that case, let's get started. So for the people watching who maybe haven't heard before, I'm Jennifer Fergesen, and I'm the moderator for this session, Session 3, Media. I'm a journalist based in California, and among other things, I write about Filipino restaurants around the world for ABS-CBN and for Positively Filipino magazine based in Burlingame. And until recently, I also taught creative writing at UC Davis, so I'm going to approach moderating this session kind of like a discussion session that you might remember from school. So the conversation is going to come from you, the panelists, and also the participants. So this is a conversation not only among the panelists, but among everyone in the room. So if you have anything you want to know, feel free to ask. I think you can put a comment in the chat box here on the side of the screen. So if you have a question that you want me to read, you can type that up and I'll read it for you. And we'll ask the panelists what they have to say about it. It looks like it won't really be necessary because only 5 participants here, but if you have any noise in the background that you think might interrupt the session, please feel free to mute yourself just so it doesn't interrupt. So we'll just start by doing some introductions. So please introduce yourself, your project, your organization if you're an associated one, and what you're working on now. So let's start with you, Ali.
Hey everybody, I'm Ali, or Alexandra Cuerdo. I directed a movie called Ulam Main Dish, which is about the Filipino American food movement specific to New York and LA. We really wish we could have gone around the country, especially to Hawaii. Yeah, that's pretty much me. I write and direct films, usually that have something to do with Asian American culture. I'm really passionate about representation and really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Eric, want to go to you?
Yeah, sure. My name is Eric, and I contribute to a local website and blog known as Frolic Hawaii. Frolic Hawaii likes to keep abreast of the newest food trends and the food scene here in Hawaii, mainly Oahu, but throughout the state. So we do our best to try to support the local food scene and try to educate and also support when we can the various businesses and local entities that are here.
And Queenie?
Hi everyone, I'm Queenie Laforga from Queenie's Food Journey. I was born and raised on Oahu, Hawaii, and I started my food page to help other diabetics and support my passion of food, and also to inspire others through Filipino cooking and the culture. As I was introduced to Filipino food a lot from my grandparents that migrated here from the Philippines. And also thanks for having me here.
Great. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Gino. I am a cake artist. I make sculpted cakes and all those fancy shaped cakes. And at the same time, I'm also a multi-award winning book writer. I wrote a book about the Filipino comfort women and how their struggles continue. And I'm very excited to be here because I really love food.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure everyone here loves food. And that's actually something, as media professionals, I'm sure that you spent plenty of time making movies and writing about other things before you came to this subject. So why did you decide to focus on food, specifically Filipino food, in your work? And anyone can start.
Well, for myself, our website, frolichawaii.com, it was actually a different website in its previous incarnation. It was known as Nonstop Honolulu. And it actually didn't have a focus on food. It was actually a lifestyle website. And my role there was to cover the nightlife. So I would be going to the bars or to the clubs, taking pictures and finding out what the next event was. But then the reality is that more of the profit was in the food scene. So looking back at where the most of our traffic was coming from, it was coming from people interested about the food scene in Hawaii. So we had this big shift of changing from lifestyle to focusing into food and eventually transforming into frolichawaii.com. And I believe I'm the only Filipino that's on the staff. And during my time there, covering various food events, restaurant openings, and so on, I noticed that there really wasn't that much coverage at the time of the Filipino cuisine and the Filipino culture. And I thought I was in a good position to help not only learn about the Filipino culture for myself, but also to share that learning experience with the viewers and readers of our website and publication. And it's been a great journey for myself. I grew up being within the Filipino culture, but then I'm not originally from Hawaii, I'm from the mainland. So I was learning a lot of new things at the same time living in Hawaii. So we find that, at least for Frolic Hawaii, a lot of the traffic comes from people that want to learn more about food in general. And being a Filipino, I see that as an opportunity to share that experience with those type of people.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I mean, I can speak to that too because I came up in the entertainment industry out in Los Angeles, and there really was no interest when I first started bringing around the idea of a Filipino food documentary. A lot of the, I would say, like mainstream media outlets really didn't believe that there was an audience for this, which for me felt so disappointing, and it sort of felt like a lack of understanding about the demographics of, California and the demographics of LA. There's a huge Filipino food scene in Los Angeles and a big one in New York. And for me, it just felt like, well, why not? The chefs are already out here. It sort of felt like a missed opportunity. So it was actually amazing. We got to access some really amazing chefs because I think partially because there was really nobody doing it. We were actually the first Filipino food documentary that received worldwide distribution. So it really began with an event with the Los Angeles Times, our sort of like patron saint who really believed in us from the beginning was a really great food writer by the name of Jonathan Gold. And he was the one who kind of championed this little Filipino food film that had, Alvin Kailan from Egg Slut and Nicole Ponseca from, Maharlika and Jeepney. And, for me, all these heavyweights, and it was really cool to be able to show that to a very mixed audience. And in terms of the critics, our very first screening was sold out. 800 people lining up around the block. So there are a lot of people that love Filipino food. And that's why you don't listen to the haters. I'm curious to hear from Queenie. How about you?
So I chose to focus on Filipino food because I grew up eating it. However, sometimes there is some negative I guess things on Filipino food saying it's salty, we always eat pork and things like that. So I wanted to recreate recipes that involve different ingredients or using, say, zucchini noodles instead of actually egg noodles for pancit or something like that. And so I want to share it with the world. I want to share it with my family, my friends, and other Filipinos out there around the world. To know that Filipino food can also be healthy and not just salty, or we don't always eat pork necessarily.
How about you decide to focus on food in your work?
Oh, I just wanted to have some means for parents to have more imagination as far as their cakes look like. So just and then playing with flavors and all that. That's why I wanted to ask, if I may ask a question. It's like about how, for especially for Queenie, you love Filipino food, and again, you just mentioned something about diets and all that. And how do you um, reconcile everything? Like, people with diabetes, celiac disease, and then our own diet which is very rice heavy and starch heavy.
Right. So the main thing that I do is I use other alternatives instead of salt. I use fish sauce or coconut aminos, or I also portion control a lot. I've been diabetic for about 12 years, and I do take insulin shots 4 times a day. Needless to say that just because I'm diabetic doesn't mean I'm unhealthy. It's something genetic that I've been battling with. And also, I wanted to inspire other diabetics because my grandmother passed away at a young age of 59. And it seemed as I carry her food genes here. And so I think portion control and knowing how much to eat, when to eat, and knowing what you're putting in your body is very important.
I noticed that Michael Medina, he had a question about how do we get more articles and stories in the media featuring Filipino food, suppliers, brands, and trends in Hawaii? Well, I can speak about what Frolic Hawaii has experienced over the years. So in preparation for this panel, I spoke with my editor, Mari Takeda. She's not Filipino herself, but she has a very strong interest and passion in Filipino food. And this was a great opportunity for us to talk about things to think about when trying to get Filipino food and cuisine, in the media. So this isn't a comprehensive list, but these are some of the things that we discussed. And some of it is Hawaii specific, especially for Oahu. So one of them is location. So over the years, we've discovered that a lot of the people that are interested in trying new types of food tend to either frequent or live in Metro Honolulu. So if there's a way to either bring your food to Metro Honolulu or open up a location. And we realize that this isn't, feasible for everyone. These are just some of the things that we discussed. It's not easy to just open a new location. But just keep in mind, if there's an opportunity for you to share your food in Metro Honolulu, that's a great location to reach a wider audience. And the media, they like to cover stories that enables a wide range of people to get value from that. So the larger the audience, the more likely the media will probably feel it being of interest to their viewership, their readership. In addition to that, it's also being aware of what the trends are for that season, for that time. So currently right now, from what we've seen in Frolic Hawaii, the big food trend right now is boba. So if you actually go to the frolichawaii.com website and you type in boba in the search bar, there's actually a lot of different pieces that have been written this year in 2020 and even 2019 that talk about the different boba restaurants that are opening up here in Oahu, a lot of the different dishes that are incorporating boba into their menus. So right now, the hot thing is boba, and knowing how to incorporate that in your menu is another way to not only get the audience to come to your restaurant, but also to have the media be more inclined to cover your restaurant because your restaurant is a part of the trends. Past trends were, I believe, there was ube, which is very popular in the Filipino community. There was also soft serve as another popular trend. So just being aware of those types of trends and trying to incorporate that into your restaurant's menu. And also making the food more approachable. So knowing your audience, knowing what the audience knows about Filipino food and what they don't know about Filipino food. So that's why a lot of the chefs that were mentioned earlier by the keynote speakers, like Chef Simeon, Chef Guzman, their dishes are incorporating not only Filipino cuisine, but incorporating it, fusing it together with existing dishes, which makes it more understandable to the people that they may want to try Filipino food, but they just don't know where to start. But they see it in a form that they've already have seen elsewhere. So, for instance, Shay's in Kakako, Shay's Filipino Cafe, they have a adobo pizza, and they also have an adobo grilled cheese sandwich. And those are two very delicious things put together that I would love to try out. And just a disclaimer, I have no relation to Shay's Cafe. I've actually never been there, but after doing research for this presentation, I plan to visit there very soon. And on top of that, it's also making the food visually appealing. You know, social media, making it, as they say, Instagrammable. So you want to make your food visually appealing and in a way that people are excited. It's fun. It's interesting. They want to know more about the picture they just saw. They want to actually go to the restaurant and try the food that looks great on their Instagram. And in the media, they pick up on these things. They pick up on what people are talking about on social media. They pick up on the trends. And if your restaurant is part of that, if your restaurant is leading that, then there's a greater likelihood that the media will want to cover your restaurant because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eric, I think that's a really good perspective on that from your editor's point of view. How you get more articles, more stories in the media. I mean, as a journalist who has most of my experience in freelancing, I have the other side of the issue, trying to pitch stories about Filipino food in the mainstream media. And so many editors don't think there's interest, like you mentioned, Ali. Like, I remember pitching a story to a magazine once, and they said it was about Filipino food in Greenland. And they said it seemed really interesting, but they couldn't publish it because they already had a story about Thai food in the Faroe Islands. So they kind of had their quota covered there. Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak to that, Ali, actually. Like your experience before you came to the LA Times of trying to get people to pay attention to what you wanted to talk about. How did you appeal to them? How did you make them realize that it was important?
I went viral. That's literally what happened. And it's so funny, like everything you're saying, Eric, is totally on point. But it is also something that I have seen a lot of pushback from, especially from mom and pop shops. Like there are a lot of places that cater to Filipino specific communities, and that's just what it is. Not every restaurant wants to go viral. Not every restaurant wants to serve that community. And it's tough because I feel like social media is so interesting, right? It's like one of those things that can really boost you, but then it can also, I think in some ways also, kind of encourage gentrification. There's a lot of, it's sticky. It's a sticky situation, but yeah, the short answer is I went viral. Before I had the hardest time finding financing for this documentary. I got to tell you, I knocked on every door, and to their credit, every chef did this doc for free. Because they understood the importance of chronicling our history, because that's what food and restaurants are. They're not just restaurants. They are gathering places. They are places where, Filipinos come together to, create our own culture and create our own space, and to exist in a, high turnover restaurant scene like New York or even Los Angeles. It's seen as sort of like a cultural, I don't know, touchstone or win. It's like, because we can exist there, because we can make a profit there, we can say that, we as a people have a food and a culture that is interesting to everyone. And it's really, it's so tough. For me, the journey was really, I had to make it on my own. I had to go to private investors. I had to knock on every door and really not listen to, honestly, a lot of the Caucasian establishment that did not at the time understand that there was a difference between Filipino people and Chinese people, or Filipino people and Thai people. It's so easy to sort of dismiss what you don't understand. And obviously, I started this journey in like 2014. So it took 5 years to get Ulam made. And it was a process of proving every step of the way that Filipino food and culture was valid and interesting. And this was in conjunction with, the New York Times putting Filipino food on the front page of the food section. And Lagaya Machan, who's an incredible writer over there, just really pushing. I mean, it's not obviously just me or just us in this room. It's everybody. Every single person in media, in journalism has been pushing for years to make this happen. And, for us to be the first, kind of major food documentary, because we're on Hulu now and on Amazon and Tastemade, and I mean, you name it, everybody wants in now that Filipino food has perceived to be kind of more mainstream. But yeah, the short answer is the LA Times saw a trailer that I cut together from like no money in my living room. And the trailer had like over 100,000 views in the Philippines and in the US. And it got picked up by Eater in LA. And people were talking about what's this movie? When's it going to come out? And that's when Jonathan Gold picked up the phone.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd like to hear more about this going viral thing, because I'm sure that's what so many people in this room want to do. And maybe, Queenie, you could also speak to this as someone who's brands herself as an influencer. How can people in the food media and people who want to attract the attention of the food media, how can they use that sort of viral jet stream
So I
to
think
get where
right
they want to
now
go?
social media is in everyone's hands. Everyone's just has been on their phone. I started about 2 years ago, and it's really grown in the past year. During the pandemic time, actually, is when I saw my most growth. And I think it's because everyone's been home, and I've been sharing more food, more culture. And every time I share a Filipino item, I always go above and beyond to share what it is and what's in the food. And for social media, I think it hits everyone around the world globally, because social media is worldwide. And I think social media can get the word across for Filipino food, Filipino culture, and get us on the map.
Can I have a quick question?
Sure.
What about all the exotic foods that the Filipino eat? Because I know one time I was in the grocery, and while I was shopping, and then some different lahi came by and saying you like that. And so like, what do you do? How do you respond to that?
Honestly, I just try to ignore it. I think every culture has something yucky, honestly, and I just share it like bagoong. I mean, we use the fish broth in our vegetables, but you know what is actually more healthy than actual salt or fish sauce? Is better to use than soy sauce. And so things like that, thinking about what ingredients to mix with your food. And so, some people, there are a lot of negative things, but and I get negative comments, and I choose to delete it and not associate myself with that. I think that helps a lot.
But Eric, on your side, as someone who's working with social media for publication, what do you think does best on social media? What do you gravitate towards?
Well, from my experience, from seeing the posts on Facebook and Instagram, and just some of the messages that we've been left on the FrolicHawaii.com website, what really does well is when it's something new, something innovative. If it's something that no one else has done before, and also if there's a time limit, if there's a sense of urgency of when to get it. So if it's, say, a grand opening, a restaurant just opened last week and Frolic covers it, there's something that we like to call the Frolic effect. So we've had instances where we've heard about a new restaurant opening in downtown, and then it's only been open for a week. We do a story on that particular restaurant, and then the next week they're just inundated with all of the downtown workers seeing that post and wanting to try the newest, eatery nearby. So there's also that aspect of being new, being different, and then also just trying something that no one else has. Not specifically Filipino, but remember when the ramen burger was a big thing a couple of years ago? So that thing went really, really viral for us. Everyone wanted to know where to get the ramen burger, how it tasted. So things like that, things that are just different, that are trendy and that are new, that does really well for our audience on Frolic.
It's interesting. Yeah, I want to turn right now to, I guess, something that the Filipino food movement tries to focus on through their work. And it's how can the media, people both who utilize social media and who use traditional media, how can they actually elevate Filipino food itself, like help Filipino food entrepreneurs without moving directly into the realm of public relations and marketing? How do you do that through your work?
I mean, all the support helps, right? I mean, this is also, you know, in terms of going viral, I also used to work at BuzzFeed for a little bit. So there's a whole infrastructure to going viral, you know, and really what it means is it's word of mouth. You know, if you are a person who doesn't work in media, but you want to support Filipino food, you know, find your local Filipino restaurants and share every single thing they post. You know, that's really it. It's and for me, in terms of, you know, I do work in media, and I have friends who are food journalists, you know, across the board at, you know, everywhere from places like the New York Times to places like Food Beast, you know, and the thing that I can do, and the thing that I do is constantly engage in conversations about, okay, what are you guys covering, you know, and what kinds of places, not just the mainstream places, not just the places in high traffic neighborhoods, but also the mom and pop shops. I think that those are really some of the places, especially now during the pandemic, that need views the most. And I think that I don't know, that's the cool thing about working in media, is there's also the ability to make something go viral. Like, in a lot of ways, we are the tastemakers. So I think that that it, like, whatever we shine the spotlight on is really important.
I think that's really totally right. And I'm glad you brought up Ligaya Mishan, because that's exactly what she did for so many years through Hungry City. Like, she was always going to restaurants that didn't have a PR budget, that didn't have big Instagram followings, that maybe even people who were reading Eater every day hadn't heard of. And I think I personally really admire people in the food media who do that. But Erica, since are you in an editorial position at Frolic?
I am a freelancer contributor. Yeah,
so you're a freelancer. You're a freelancer, but you seem to have a lot of say.
Well, we have a very good working relationship, and I'm very fortunate that Mari is very open and understanding. So she is very willing to try and experiment with new things. So in that respect, I didn't have to go through the struggles that you folks had to go through in trying to push and pitch the Filipino culture. So I'm actually very privileged and fortunate that Mari has been very open-minded and even has a passion herself about learning about the Filipino cuisine and culture out there.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm sure all the I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I was going to say, and to that, like, that is also really finding people who want to learn about it. Like, you can just educate, you know, as education is as important as, you know, as anything else. You know, if somebody has a question, it's great to be able to give people an answer. Like, what is balut? Don't just be like, oh man, that's gnarly. Like, you know, like, you can actually explain it.
Yeah, don't yuck someone's yum.
Right. And that context is usually the difference between people thinking something is cool and that they want to try it, or like kind of not getting it, and just having a friendly face to explain and do it in a kind way. I think that goes, you know, a long way.
Yeah, and speaking of having a kind face and a friendly person, I think what I truly believe in is also networking. It's meeting the right people that share the same passion and interest, and also the right people in a position to help you spread the word. So I think there's a networking session after the summit, and I think that's a great opportunity for everyone to meet other people that either want to learn or that might be in a position to help spread the word about Filipino cuisine and about the Filipino culture. So it's one thing that you have the food, you have the product, but if nobody knows about it, then it doesn't really help anyone. So it's about finding the people that are passionate like you are and having them spread the word to the people that want to know more, that want to experience the culture and the cuisine.
That's absolutely right. And just speaking of explaining balut, and this idea of like gross fruit or whatever, if you want to learn more about that and kind of the identity behind balut, there's a really excellent book that came out last year called Balut, Fertilized Eggs, The Making of Culinary Capital by Margaret Magat. I totally recommend it. It's
By
excellent.
Margaret Magat.
Magat, yeah. Just a short little book. She's a folklorist, but the book is super readable. It's great. Really changed the way I think about it. But yeah, as we were talking about restaurants and how they're struggling right now, I mean, everybody's talking about these pivots that restaurants are doing, trying to move into a new business model, figure things out. But I mean, the food media is doing that too. So I was curious to hear, how has your practice changed since the shutdown began, and how have you shifted either your coverage or how you do your work?
So for me, as the restaurants started opening up in the past couple months, I've been highlighting restaurants and going to taste their food, and took a break from cooking in 2020 and in the last couple of months going to restaurants and highlighting them on my social media, and it, so that I could cross promote it on social media platforms here in Oahu. And I also try to encourage people to also visit their local farmers markets. Like Waipahu, we have like a huge farmers market, and support our farmers and buy your produce from there instead of going to big supermarkets instead, and try to buy from the mom and pop stores that are selling these vegetables to take home and cook.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Ellie? You mentioned that you wanted to kind of travel the rest of the world beyond New York and LA. Were you planning to do that before the shutdown started?
Yes, but we actually also were able to bring Ulam around the world, actually, which was really cool. We teamed up with this amazing group of women in Australia, actually, called the Entrepreneurs. Shout out to them. They're so wonderful. And also the Filipino food movement in Sydney. And we were able to do a run of screenings in Australia, which was amazing. And the film actually became a teaching tool in Canada, and was shown at many different Canadian consulates and classrooms and colleges, and that was really cool too, to kind of like be able to sort of spread the good word of Filipino food and really bring awareness, and also like for smaller restaurants especially, who are maybe the only Filipino restaurant in their town, to just know that there's a greater scene and there's a greater movement that supports them. I think that was actually really encouraging. So yeah, we actually were really lucky. We got a bit of our world tour, so that was great. In terms of the next thing I did after that was I actually did write a cookbook. It became one of the top 20 books on Amazon last year, which was so cool. It's called Amboy, Recipes from the Filipino American Dream. And I wrote that with my good friend, Alvin Kailan. So that was sort of the biggest food project. And as of now, I'm honestly mostly staying home like the rest of y'all, and, trying out new recipes and dreaming of the day I can go to restaurants again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious. Oh, sorry. I was curious to hear from Liza. How is your industry? How is your cake shop? Like, how has it been affected by the pandemic?
Oh, it's been affected a lot. Not a lot of people are throwing parties nowadays, and throwing parties, and because it's shared food. So because of the pandemic, shared food is not quite a great idea. So I've been concentrating on those individually wrapped things. Custom cookies and stuff, and also Filipino. But what I wanted to point out was that when I was building my business, I had to get all the social media stuff together, take pictures, learn how to take good pictures. Because if I didn't have good pictures, it doesn't translate very well. And then, when you make an impact, capitalize on it. Like if the person really like your food, just go say, hey, can you just, help me, or can you tell people about me? And then sometimes, it goes around all families, like, hey, my cousin had a cake from you last week. And so it feels good. But again, there's so many small businesses struggling, and if we can just impart all of this to all of them, then that would be really awesome.
Beautiful. I want to have your cake. What's your place called? And do you deliver outside of Hawaii?
Oh, I mail my stuff. My favorite one, the crowd favorite is Food for the Gods and Ube Crinkle, and I do mail those all over the place. And my most famous person who ordered from me was Lizzo. I made her a Hawai'i cake. One was chocolate,
Lizzo?
the other one was vanilla.
Wait, what? How is that not a viral moment? I feel like that's a viral moment if I've ever heard one.
It was so awesome. And then, she sent me a photo of her with a cake and a wine glass. And like, oh man, I capitalize on it. I shared it everywhere on Instagram, on Facebook. It's just like, hey, she bought a cake for me.
That's so cool.
But it was so funny because I didn't even know who she was till her producer ordered.
That is so awesome.
That's amazing. When you say a Hawai'i cake, was it? What was it? Oh,
How she
She's
likes
just
it.
being nice.
How she's about body, positive body image, and how she at one time she actually mooned her audience.
Yes.
I love that you know so much about Lizzo. That just makes me so happy.
But it's fun because I like, that's, I think, to what Eric pointed, you have to support it, and then just whatever is trendy and whatever is a positive feed, what gives out positive energy, then you just capitalize on it and just throw it out there.
It's true. Engagement is really important. Engaging with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And to Jennifer's question earlier about what people like to see on Frolic Hawaii, whenever we post cakes and pastries, there's always so many likes when they see that luscious, delicious looking dessert. So, Lisa, if you can share your Instagram, I would love to see some of your, cakes and pastries.
Oh yeah, one guy ordered a sub sandwich.
Cool.
Oh, and this.
I said, it says, you want the hamburger? No, I want the sub. Oh, okay, a sub. It's a sub with, with the relish dripping and all that, the mustard.
But a cake?
Yeah, for a cake.
A sub cake.
Yeah, there's some people where the parents will call me back and say the child doesn't want to slice the cake.
The child doesn't want to slice the cake.
That's amazing.
If you have Instagram, would love to see the pictures that you post on there of your cakes.
It's my favorite bite. Instagram is my favorite bite.
My favorite bites.
And I would love to.
yeah. I like what you said about that.
Yeah, I would love to know what Queenie's social media.
So it's Queenie's food journey. I'll type it in the chat, but I think I'm following everybody else so far. I'm not sure if Jennifer, do you have one?
Everybody.
I think I do. Yeah. I just started this 3 posts on it, but I was hoping there could be a couple minutes at the end of the session that everybody could put their Instagram or Twitter, whatever they want people to follow, in the chat box, and that includes participants because I think everyone can see the chat questions. So just I'll leave some minutes at the end, and everyone can post up whatever, and we can all follow each other. Great. So speaking of those cakes and all the amazing stuff you've been creating, Lisa, this is a question that I've been asking a lot of creators, artists during this whole year. Like, how have you been able to keep your energy up to create, to push yourself to create, especially if you don't have like an editor or a boss that's telling you have to crank this out? Like, how do you continue to feel like your work is important and continue to make it?
I have clients like this elderly couple who's celebrating their anniversary, and I made little sugar figures of them in their little traditional Chinese outfit. That felt good. when I saw the woman who celebrated her 100th birthday, and then bringing a cake, that made me feel good. Or even again, that child who refused to cut their birthday cake because they want to make sure that it stayed intact. That feels good. But again, because of COVID, it's been difficult and kind of frankly, sometimes depressing. But so I just look back at what I've done, and then I share. I share what I have, and then I help. I did the culinaria yesterday, last 2 weeks ago for bibingka, and that was fun. I mean, people say, "Why do you share your recipes? You shouldn't share your recipes. It's intellectual property." It's like, no, well, not everybody can do what you do, but it'll be nice to share because I believe that cooking is another form of language. So because our food, our dishes is so wrapped in traditions and in how in culture that we need to speak loudly with our food.
How about you, Queenie? I'm always curious about bloggers. Like, how do you keep making more posts? How do you motivate yourself?
So recently, about 2 to 3 times a week, I get invited to a restaurant, or I like to highlight people who are cooking out of their homes and selling their products. And they're so appreciative when I do a post for them for free. And I also love to support. So I try to buy my produce from them as much and support them as much as I can. And when they text me back or message me back of how appreciative they are about it, it makes me feel really good. Like I must be doing something right, that, people are following me. And I never thought I'd be where I am today from just being home and sharing my recipes and food on social media. So that's what gets me going. People feel appreciative, and it makes me feel good as well.
That's great. How about you, Ali? I think I cut you off.
I was going to ask you, actually, how about yourself? Because I know you do so much food writing as well. Like, what keeps you going in the midst of, all of this?
Sure. Well, I mean, my own practice is definitely totally cut by this. I mean, my project is the Global Carinderia, and starting in 2018, I've been traveling all over the world, going to Filipino restaurants in places you wouldn't expect them, like the Faroe Islands, Greenland, Iceland, Georgia, random places. And I got an award from the Philippine government for that, actually. And when I was at the award ceremony, I was asked by GMA to do a TV series of it. But then the pandemic and everything stopped. And now I'm completely on my own. But I did kind of feel like I was the only person giving some of these restaurants a platform. So instead of all over the world and visiting these restaurants, I just called them on the phone, paid extremely expensive international calling rates, and but still cheaper than actually going there, and kept telling stories that way. And so ABS-CBN took notice, and also it's in Positively Filipino. But yeah, it's just what you were saying, Queenie. It's the appreciation. Yeah, it's been fun. It's the appreciation you see from these restaurateurs that aren't getting any other mainstream attention, knowing that you can do some tiny bit of help. You can both elevate them and also document the work that they've been doing for all this time. It's a great role to have.
I think we're over our time.
Are we?
Oh.
I thought we were going till 4:30.
Okay, because I just saw on something that I saw Andrea Kaimo say we are now on the break. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Okay, I still have time. I'm going to make sure to leave a little extra time. And I want to make sure to get to all the questions in the chat as well. So we have a question here from Michael Medina, and he's curious about longanisa. So he's saying, adobo, lumpia, pancit, these are the dishes that are popular with non-Filipinos, probably the most familiar Filipino dishes. Do you think longanisa could become popular if it was like just like Portuguese and Italian sausage?
Yes. 100% yes. The sweet longanisa and the vinegar longanisa. I mean, you can do so much with it. You don't just have to make it as a breakfast sausage. You can actually break it up and actually add long beans to it as like a stir fry. Yeah.
That's really good.
Also, longanisa is like way better than most hot dogs, just gonna say. So you could put it in a bun and have a super hot dog. So
And there's so many different kinds of longanisa too. Like when I traveled in the north, like in Vigan and Lawag, the longanisa
yes,
are amazing.
vegan longanisa is phenomenal. It's like next.
Mhm.
I only hope to visit the Philippines one day and get really deep into my roots. I was supposed to go before the pandemic as well, but all travel stopped. So I really hope to visit someday.
Oh, I would love to go with you. It looks like you would find all that great spots. We should plan it.
I have family there too that I've never met in my life. So it would be nice to go for the culture, the food, and family.
Definitely do it. And if you're looking for a food tour, hit me up because I know all the food tourism people.
We should all meet over there.
Hey, that's a great idea. Post-pandemic, meet.
Yes. Philippines.
For sure.
I can't wait to travel.
Me too.
Yeah, that's something that we had pre-pandemic here in Hawaii. They would do, I think they would call them food crawls. So they would have a list of different restaurants for a particular type of food. And throughout the night, the group would go and try a dish at each restaurant. No, it was a pretty fun event. So maybe something like that could be done, with Filipino cuisine. Do a Filipino food crawl in your local city and visiting each of the different Filipino restaurants and sampling, their signature dish.
That's a great idea. I know Lanai's travel. Lanai used to do a travel thing too to the Philippines. Yeah.
About like restaurants and travel and all this tourism industry, Eric, I was actually curious to ask you since you read about restaurants. How do you feel about continue to promote restaurants during this time? A New York Times writer, I believe it was Tahel Rao, or maybe it was Alejo, it was some prominent food writer. She wrote about how she just doesn't write about restaurants anymore, about restaurants offering dine-in because she doesn't want to encourage people to go into a situation that might be dangerous to them. Mm-hmm. But of course, that sort of promotion can help the restaurants themselves. So how do you navigate that sort of dilemma?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a really, like Alexandra said, it's a very sticky situation. There's always, two ways to look at things. On one hand, you want to help the restaurant survive. You want to help these mom and pop operations stay in business. You want to help them perpetuate Filipino cuisine, Filipino culture, and you don't want to see them go away. And by doing that, you would have to tell people, go and frequent their restaurant, go visit their restaurant and support them by purchasing their food. But at the same time, we are in the middle of a pandemic and we have to be aware of the dangers of, associating closely in environments where there's chances to either, get or spread, COVID to other people, and it's very, I think personally, I think it's a very personal question. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it really depends on the context and what you're comfortable with. I think ultimately you always have to keep safety in mind. But at the same time, I think people can still find ways to support, their favorite restaurants, Filipino or whatnot. So to that end, there's always takeout. So you don't necessarily have to dine in at a restaurant. I think the reality of the restaurant world now is that they either don't offer dine-in or it's strictly just takeout. So what we've been doing since the pandemic started, we had a new feature called our favorite takeout for the month. And that's actually one of our most popular features on Frolic, where all of the Frolic contributors, we do a little blurb about the favorite takeout that we had for that particular month. And that way we give exposure to restaurants that offer takeout, that offer that option. And we also are able to give our readers, choices of where they can go to try delicious food. And they don't necessarily have to sit down and eat there and expose themselves or others to, potential COVID situations. They can go there, grab some food and go back home, and enjoy it there. But maybe not every restaurant has the ability to do takeout. So it really is, I think, a personal choice that I think at the end you have to really think about safety, but then also think about what you can do to help support these businesses that are struggling during these hard times.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Are there any other thoughts on that? Right. Okay. Well, just from the last question. I'm sorry, Lisa. I cut you off
No,
again.
it's okay. I was just going to say here, and I'm sure it's probably not an issue in Hawaii, being you have such nice big open spaces. But over here in California, what we then to do was close Main Street and put outdoor buildings, build sheds out there so people could go eat out. And again, they've learned to adapt through the situation by doing the takeout and putting safety first, because again, like I said, sharing food is also a safety issue. That's why it has to be all wrapped up. Like, so I know some common places where you have the family buffet, they're not open anymore. They've since changed their model by doing it, offering featured, like what Eric just said, featured their best plates for the week, and that's how they've kind of pivot through this kind of environment.
It's definitely true. So we just have 4 minutes left. If anybody has any social media handles they want other people in the room to follow, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to do that. So I'm on Instagram at Cuerdo Carinderia, and my website is www.cuerdocarinderia.com. So go ahead and fill in that chat box. And for the last few minutes, I always like to end on a positive note. And there are definitely some positive things that have come out of this really difficult year. So what are some silver linings, some new things that you've discovered this year that you hope will carry forward, however the food landscape, the media landscape changes in the future?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is how much more approachable delivery is. So prior to the pandemic, I never really saw delivery as something I would do on a regular basis. But now I've discovered how convenient, maybe not the cheapest, but how convenient it is to have food delivered, directly to my home. And that's a great way to support these businesses that I love their food, but it may not be the safest time to go and either visit them directly or eat in their establishment. I can still try to get delivery, sent directly to my home. So I think one thing that came out of this is understanding that there's always an option available to support these businesses.
Mm-hmm. Any other silver linings?
I think for me, it would have to be to continue to support our local restaurants and mom and pop stores to keep the restaurant industry alive, and not seeing your favorite restaurants closing.
Yeah, I agree. I think delivery, supporting local restaurants, these are all awesome. I think like the one positive thing about the pandemic making everybody kind of stay at home is like I feel like I'm getting to cook a lot more and just share a lot more like meals with like literally the family that I'm living with or my roommate, and that's really that's sort of like its own joy. I discovered a service that delivers hot pot to your door, like crazy things like that. And it's fun to also be able to go through cookbooks from friends who have written cookbooks and really just be able to like cook through Filipino cookbooks and learn and really dig into some of the amazing cooking techniques that Filipino food has, that I think makes it so unique. So yeah, I think learning a lot more about cooking at home is really lovely.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So I think we have less than a minute left, so I don't get cut off. I just want to say thank you so much to all our speakers, to Ali Cuerdo, Eric Baranda, Queenie Laforga, and Lisa Gino. Thank you so much for being such great panelists, and thanks to the audience as well for being here. And does anyone else want to have the last word? Say something nice.
Thank you. Be kind.
Yes, thank you. Mabuhay.
Yes, thank you.
Salamat.
Mabuhay.
Salamat. Mabuhay.
Okay, I'm going to head back to the
Okay.
main stage. Let's see what the panelists have to say.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here. Let's all connect.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Frolic Hawaii. I always tag you.
You guys are awesome.
Thanks so much.
You so much. You
I'm
guys
gonna
are
follow
really
you,
awesome.
Lisa.
I would love to talk to you more about your
Yes.
substitutes for dishes, for you know,
Yes.
salt and sugar.
Yes.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what you folks post on social media.
Me
Very
too.
exciting.
Keep in touch on social media.
Yeah, we'll
All
do.
right. Nice meeting you guys.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.